"Please remove them," she pleaded. The rancher lifted the sack and gasped in shock. The sun had almost disappeared behind the distant red hills, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. Elias Vorn wiped the sweat from his brow as he surveyed the last of his herd. His ranch was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the occasional low moo of his genetically enhanced cattle. On this frontier planet, life was hard, and every day was a struggle to keep the animals alive and the crops from dying under the harsh sun. Elias had grown used to solitude. The quiet was his companion, and the land was his home. He was checking the fences along the northern edge of his property when he noticed movement in the dust cloud along the horizon. At first he thought it was a stray animal or a gust of wind kicking up dirt, but as he squinted he saw a figure, a woman, running toward him. Her movements were frantic, desperate, and Elias' instincts told him she was in trouble. Elias dropped the wrench he had been using to tighten a post and ran toward her. "Hey, slow down, what's wrong?" he shouted. The woman didn't stop. She stumbled over a rock, nearly falling, and Elias reached her just in time to catch her before she hit the ground. She was small and fragile, her clothes torn and dirt-streaked, her face pale and sweaty. Her dark eyes were wide with fear. "Please, please," she gasped, clutching something close to her chest. "You have to remove them, please, I don't have much time." Elias frowned. "Remove what? What's going on?" She didn't answer right away. She just pressed the sack harder against her chest and shook her head. "Please, just lift it. You'll understand. You have to see." Elias hesitated. He wasn't sure he wanted to get involved, but something about her panic made it impossible to walk away. "All right," he said cautiously. "Just let me help you set it down." She nodded quickly, and together they placed the sack on the ground. Elias' hands trembled slightly as he reached down and untied the rough rope that held it closed. The sack moved beneath his fingers and he froze. Something inside was alive. Slowly, he lifted the corner of the cloth. His breath caught. Inside were small, wriggling forms, unlike anything he had ever seen. They had smooth, pale skin, large dark eyes, and tiny limbs that twitched with energy. Their expressions were startlingly intelligent, almost human, but not quite. Elias stumbled back, gripping the sack tightly to keep it from falling. What are they?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The woman Mara, as she finally said her name, looked at him with eyes that pleaded for understanding. They're experiments," she said. Her voice trembled. "From a species not from here. They weren't supposed to survive, but they did. You have to help them before they come for them." Elias' mind raced. He had heard stories about alien species monitoring human colonies, sometimes experimenting to see if humans were a threat or if they could be controlled. He had never believed any of it, thinking those were just rumors. But now, holding the wriggling sack in his arms, he felt the truth pressing down on him like the weight of the dying sun. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why bring them here?" Mara looked away, her fingers brushing her hair nervously. Because you're human. You have something they don't understand. You adapt, you survive, you fight when you have to. I can't do this alone." Elias felt a strange mix of fear and pride. Humans. Something about Mara's words stirred a familiar spark inside him. Humans weren't supposed to be special, not out here on the edges of the galaxy. But maybe, just maybe, they were more than the aliens thought. He set the sack carefully on a nearby table in his barn. The creatures inside hissed and twitched, but when Elias reached out his hand, they calmed, tilting their heads and watching him with bright, intelligent eyes. It was unnerving and mesmerizing at the same time. "All right," Elias said finally, taking a deep breath. "First things first, we need to get them out of here safely. Then we figure out what to do." Mara nodded, relief washing over her face. She stepped closer and whispered, "They can sense fear, anger, any strong emotion. Be calm, be patient. They'll respond." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. The creatures weren't just alive. They were aware, intelligent beyond anything he had encountered. For a moment, he wondered if the aliens had underestimated humans by giving these beings to him. Maybe humans really were something different. The next hour passed in tense silence. Elias cleaned and inspected the barn, making sure every corner was secure. The creatures watched him, occasionally reaching out tiny hands toward his fingers. He could feel their curiosity, their intelligence, almost like they were testing him, learning him as much as he was learning them. Mara sat nearby, her eyes never leaving the creatures. "They're stronger than they look," she said softly. "Faster, smarter. And loyal if you earn it." Elias frowned. "Loyal to us," Mara nodded. "To humans, we have something they recognize, something instinctual. I don't understand it fully, but it's why I brought them here. If they fall into the wrong hands, they'll be used in ways we can't imagine. Worse, humans might be blamed, punished, eliminated. You have to keep them safe." Elias looked down at the creatures. They tilted their heads at him, making soft clicking noises, their large eyes reflecting the dim barn light. He felt a strange connection, as if they understood his thoughts without him speaking. He swallowed hard. "All right," he said. "We keep them hidden. No one sees them. No one knows, but we need supplies, food, water, some way to contain them safely. Can you help me with that?" Mara nodded quickly, relief clear on her face. "Yes, I have some supplies, but not enough. The ranch, it's perfect. You know this land, they won't find us here." Elias felt a swell of pride for his species. Humans were clever, adaptable, and stubborn as the rocks of their planet. He knew the aliens would underestimate them, and maybe that underestimation would be their greatest strength. He worked late into the night, setting up secure pens, crafting makeshift beds for the creatures, and checking the locks and barriers of his barn. The creatures were surprisingly cooperative, sensing the calm determination in his movements. They followed instructions almost instinctively, moving gently, yet with startling speed and precision when needed. By the time the second moon rose in the sky, Elias was exhausted, but he felt a strange sense of hope. The creatures were safe for now. He sat on a bench, watching them curl up in their improvised bedding, their eyes still bright, alert, and intelligent. Mara sat beside him, her hands trembling as she held her knees. "Thank you," she whispered. You don't know what you've done. You've given them a chance to live, and maybe a chance for humans to show what we're capable of." Elias nodded silently. Outside, the wind blew across the plains, carrying the scent of dust and grass. He thought about what Mara had said. Humans survived where others failed, adapted when others couldn't, and fought when survival demanded it. Maybe the galaxy had overlooked something important: humanity itself. As they sat together in the dim light of the barn, the creatures watching them with their quiet intelligence, Elias felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The frontier was harsh, lonely, and unforgiving, but it had always been home. And now, he realized, it might also be the first step in something greater, something that would prove to the universe that humans were not just survivors, they were extraordinary. And somewhere beyond the horizon, hidden among the stars, someone, or something, was watching, unprepared for what humanity was about to show. The first part of this story ended with silence, but in that silence lay tension, curiosity, and the faintest glimmer of a promise. Humans, no matter how small or isolated, were capable of unimaginable things. The night was deep and quiet on Elias Ranch. The stars above shone like scattered diamonds over the red plains. Inside the barn, the creatures slept in their makeshift pens, their small forms huddled together. Elias sat on the bench, his elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the sleeping forms. He could not stop thinking about what Mara had told him, that these beings were alien experiments, and that forces beyond this planet wanted them back. Mara was beside him, her fingers fidgeting nervously with the edge of her sleeve. "We don't have much time," she said quietly. "They will come for them sooner or later. You have to understand these creatures, they're not ordinary. And humans, you're not ordinary either." Elias raised an eyebrow. What do you mean we're not ordinary? Mara hesitated. I mean humans survive where others fail. You adapt faster, you learn faster, you fight smarter. The species that sent these experiments, they thought humans were just another colony, but you're something different, and now these creatures, they recognize that. Elias blinked slowly. Recognize us? How? They react to you, Mara said, her voice trembling slightly. They respond to your touch, your words, your thoughts even. They're not supposed to. No other species can do this. You humans, you're unique. Elias leaned back, letting the realization sink in. Humans, unique. It was a thought he had never considered, never allowed himself to believe. Out here, far from the centers of civilization, humanity was just another survivor scraping a life from barren land. But these creatures, these small, wriggling forms, had shown him otherwise. He turned to look at them. Even in sleep, they were alert, their large, dark eyes flicking open briefly before closing again. There was a strange intelligence in their gaze, a silent communication that seemed to pass between them and the humans in the room. Elias felt a shiver of both fear and wonder. Elias, Mara said, her voice low, they're more than just experiments. They are evolving because of you, because of humans. They sense something in you that no other species gives them. That's why the ones who sent them, they are afraid. They can't predict what will happen now. Elias swallowed hard. He had faced many dangers on this frontier planet, wild storms, deadly predators, and the harsh cruelty of isolation. But the idea that humans, his people, could be something no one else understood, that was both terrifying and exhilarating. For the next several hours, Elias and Mara worked in silence. They prepared food and water for the creatures, making sure the pens were secure. Elias noticed small details, how the creatures reacted when he moved, how they followed his gestures with uncanny precision, and how they seemed to anticipate his actions. They were learning, and learning fast. Suddenly, the quiet night was broken by a low hum outside. Elias froze, listening. The sound was mechanical, like nothing from the natural world. It was not a storm, not an animal, not the wind. He grabbed a lantern and stepped outside with Mara. From the horizon, a small patrol of sleek metallic ships descended toward the ranch. Their lights cut through the darkness like sharp knives. Elias' heart pounded. They found us, he said simply. Mara's face went pale. They're coming for them, she whispered. We have to move fast, hide them, or it's over. Elias nodded. His mind raced. The creatures were too small and fragile to survive any confrontation with these ships. But humans had something these aliens did not understand: creativity, unpredictability, and the ability to turn disadvantage into strength. Get them to the pens, Elias said firmly. I'll handle the rest. Mara nodded and moved quickly, scooping up the wriggling creatures. They responded immediately to her calm voice and gentle hands, coiling into her arms without resistance. Elias glanced around his land, looking for anything that could give them an advantage. The desert plains were open and exposed, but the barns and rocky hills offered cover. When the first alien patrol landed near the edge of his property, Elias greeted them not with fear but with careful strategy. He lit several small fires to create distractions, dug shallow trenches in the soft red soil, and prepared traps from the tools and equipment he had at hand. He had no advanced weapons, no armor, only his ingenuity and the landscape itself. But for humans, that was often enough. The alien patrol moved cautiously, scanning the area. Their sensors were advanced, but Elias noticed that their movements were rigid, predictable. They had technology, but humans had something better: intuition. He whispered to himself almost as a mantra: adapt, survive, protect. From inside the barn, Mara kept the creatures calm. They huddled together, their small bodies twitching but not panicking. Elias felt a surge of pride. These beings, alien as they were, instinctively trusted humans. That was remarkable. That was something no one else could understand. As the patrol moved closer, Elias triggered the first trap, a series of weights and ropes that sent a heavy metal container tumbling toward the approaching aliens. The impact startled them, forcing a brief retreat. Elias had no idea if it would slow them, but he had learned long ago that humans thrived on improvisation, turning whatever was at hand into a tool of survival. The aliens regrouped, scanning the area with lights and sensors, trying to locate the source of the disturbance. Elias watched their movements and predicted their patterns, guiding them into areas where traps and terrain advantages gave humans a chance. Each move he made was calculated, yet flexible, responding to the unpredictable actions of the patrol. Mara's voice came softly from the barn, calling Elias' name. The creatures were starting to stir, sensing tension outside. Elias took a deep breath, reminding himself that fear and panic could spread to them. Humans had a unique ability to stay calm under pressure, and that calm could influence others, even beings that were not human. Hours passed in a tense dance of strategy and stealth. The alien patrol was relentless, but Elias' knowledge of the land, his quick thinking, and his ability to adapt at a moment's notice kept them from finding the creatures. Every misstep the aliens made only reinforced Elias' belief that humans were unpredictable in ways no machine, no calculation, could anticipate. Finally, as dawn broke over the red hills, the aliens retreated temporarily, likely regrouping or recalculating their approach. Elias leaned against the barn, exhausted but alive. Mara approached him, her face a mix of awe and relief. They don't understand," she whispered. "They don't understand humans at all. They can't predict you, can't predict us. And the creatures, they recognize it. They trust you, Elias, they trust humans." Elias nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in his bones. The night had proven something extraordinary. Humans were not merely survivors. They were adaptable, clever, resilient. They could confront a threat far beyond their strength and survive because of their intelligence, intuition, and courage. He looked at the creatures again, small forms stirring in their pens, and felt a new sense of responsibility. They were not just alien experiments. They were part of a larger picture now, connected to humans in a way that defied explanation. Protecting them was not just about survival, it was about proving something to the universe. Mara touched his shoulder. "We have to keep moving forward. They'll come back stronger this time. But now we know humans are special. They can't predict us, can't control us. And these creatures, they'll fight with us because they see what we see." Elias felt a strange pride swell inside him. Humans had survived countless threats, countless disasters across countless worlds. And yet each time they had adapted, grown stronger, and found ways to turn weakness into strength. Now, in the quiet morning light, surrounded by the creatures he had sworn to protect, he realized that humanity was more than survival. Humans were a force that even the most advanced species could not ignore. The patrol would return. That was certain. But Elias also knew something else. Humans were ready. They would adapt, fight, and protect what was theirs. And in doing so, they would show the universe that humans were not ordinary. They were extraordinary. The creatures, sensing the calm determination in Elias, stirred closer, their tiny hands reaching toward him. For the first time, they made small, soft sounds, almost words, almost a language. Elias smiled faintly. It was a start. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the aliens recalculated, unprepared for what humans were capable of. The sun rose over the red plains, casting long shadows across Elias Vorn's ranch. The cool morning air was filled with the scent of dust and earth, a reminder that life on this frontier planet was never easy. Elias moved silently through the barn, checking on the creatures. They had slept through the night without incident, their small bodies nestled in the bedding Mara had helped him prepare. Their eyes flicked open as he entered, large and intelligent, following his every movement. Mara appeared behind him, carrying supplies and water. "They're ready," she said softly, "but we won't have much time before they come back." Elias nodded. He had anticipated this moment. The alien patrol had retreated at dawn, but he knew it was only a matter of time before they returned, stronger and more determined. Humans had survived countless dangers before, but this threat was unlike anything he had faced. It required not brute strength, but ingenuity, adaptability, and careful planning, qualities humans had in abundance. "We need to prepare the perimeter," Elias said, moving toward the barn doors. "Traps, barriers, and distractions. If they think they can storm this place, they'll be surprised." Mara followed him, her hands shaking slightly. "Do you think the creatures can help?" she asked. "They're small, but they seem capable." Elias studied the creatures for a moment. They were small, yes, but their movements were precise, their reactions fast, and their intelligence obvious. Humans had always relied on allies who could think and act, not just obey orders. He believed the creatures could be trusted if guided carefully. "Yes," he said finally, "they can help, but we must be careful. They're not soldiers, they're learning. We'll use their instincts, their intelligence, and our strategy. Together, we stand a chance." He set them down gently, speaking in calm, reassuring tones. The creatures responded immediately, moving closer and mimicking some of his gestures. Elias smiled faintly. Their bond was growing, and with it, the potential to defend the ranch. Outside, the first signs of movement appeared on the horizon. Sleek alien ships glinted in the sunlight, descending slowly toward the ranch. Elias' heart quickened, but he forced himself to stay calm. Panic could ruin everything. He had faced storms, predators, and isolation before, and every time survival depended on keeping a clear mind. He turned to Mara. "Get the creatures ready. Guide them to the traps and distractions. They'll follow your lead." Mara nodded, her fear tempered by determination. She moved with quiet confidence, guiding the creatures to positions Elias had prepared. Small holes in the ground were covered with debris, simple contraptions made from pulleys and weights that could topple small barriers or distract approaching enemies. Elias knew the aliens' sensors were advanced, but they could not anticipate unpredictability. As the alien patrol neared the edge of the ranch, Elias triggered the first distraction. A series of small fires flared up across the field, sending smoke into the air. The aliens paused, scanning for the source. Elias took a deep breath, knowing this was just the beginning. The patrol advanced carefully, but Elias had anticipated every move. He guided the creatures to small ridges where they could climb and hide while observing the aliens. Despite their size, they acted with surprising precision, alert and aware of the humans' instructions. Their small hands manipulated the traps with instinctive skill, showing intelligence that even Elias found remarkable. The aliens fired scanning beams across the land, their sensors piercing the air. But humans were unpredictable. Elias had led them into areas where rocks, trenches, and fires created false trails. The patrol's movement became slower, cautious. Every step they took seemed calculated, but humans had a way of turning their rigidity into an advantage. Suddenly, one of the aliens spotted movement near a rock formation. Elias held his breath. The creatures had been perfectly still, but the alien's sensors detected something. A trap triggered, a small weight fell, striking the ground with a metallic clang. The alien recoiled, startled. It was enough to make them pause, giving Elias and Mara precious seconds. "Good," Elias whispered. "Keep moving, keep calm." The creatures responded, shifting to new positions, their small bodies agile and quiet. Mara guided them with soft commands, her tone steady and reassuring. Elias watched in awe. Humans were capable of inspiring loyalty in others, even beings from another species. That trust, that connection, was something no machine could replicate. The patrol regrouped, sending small drones to scout ahead. Elias anticipated this too. Using the natural terrain, he created false paths and hiding spots. The creatures followed, responding instantly to subtle gestures. They moved like shadows, unpredictable and clever. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional clatter of a trap or the hum of alien drones. Elias' mind raced, thinking several moves ahead. Humans had always survived because they could improvise, adapt, and turn weaknesses into strengths. Every failure taught a lesson. Every challenge demanded creativity. Finally, the aliens decided to send a small landing team closer to the ranch. They moved cautiously, scanning the ground and air. Elia's trap slowed them, and the creatures, small but intelligent, assisted in creating confusion. One tripped a simple wire that released a burst of sand and dust, blinding the aliens' sensors temporarily. Another tipped over a metal container, sending it clanging across the ground. Each action bought precious moments. Elias felt a surge of pride. Humans had survived countless dangers across countless worlds. It was not raw strength that made them formidable, but their intelligence, their adaptability, and their willingness to fight for what mattered. And now, the creatures seemed to sense that strength, responding instinctively to human guidance. Mara's voice broke the tense silence. "They're learning," she whispered. "They understand strategy, timing, even caution. Elias, they're evolving because of us." Elias nodded. He realized she was right. These creatures, alien as they were developing instincts shaped by humans. And that evolution, subtle as it might be, gave humans an edge. They were unpredictable in ways the aliens could not calculate. The patrol advanced further, moving toward the barn where the creatures were hidden. Elias set the final trap, a series of rocks and weights designed to topple onto a path the aliens would take. He positioned himself carefully, ready to act if the patrol came too close. When the aliens finally approached, the trap triggered perfectly. Rocks tumbled down, creating noise, confusion, and hesitation. The patrol paused, scanning for the source. Elias seized the moment, guiding Mara and the creatures to safer positions while keeping the patrol distracted. It was exhausting work, but Elias felt alive. Humans thrived on challenges like this, on danger that required not just strength but intelligence, intuition, and courage. Each move, each decision, reinforced the idea that humans were a force to be reckoned with. The aliens tried to regroup, but Elias' strategy and the creature's instincts made them falter. Their sensors picked up false signals. Their plans were disrupted by unpredictable movements. Humans, small and fragile in body, had created chaos with mind and heart. By midday, the patrol retreated temporarily, realizing that direct confrontation would be too risky. Elias allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. Mara approached, her face bright with a mixture of exhaustion and awe. "They don't understand," she said softly. "They don't understand humans at all. They can't predict us, can't control us. And the creatures, they recognize it. They trust you. They trust humans." Elias nodded, looking at the creatures as they settled quietly in their pens. He felt a deep sense of connection and responsibility. Protecting them was not just about survival. It was about proving to the universe that humans were extraordinary. He walked outside, scanning the horizon. The alien ships had retreated but would return. That was certain. But humans were ready. They had adapted, improvised, and survived when faced with superior forces before. And now, with the creatures learning from them, they had an unexpected advantage. Mara joined him, her eyes on the horizon. "We'll have to keep moving forward," she said. "They'll come back stronger, smarter. But now we know humans are something else, and the creatures, they'll follow us because they see what we see." Elias felt a swell of pride. Humans had survived countless threats, countless disasters across countless worlds. And each time, they had adapted, grown stronger, and found ways to turn disadvantage into strength. Now, in the quiet of the desert afternoon, surrounded by the creatures he had sworn to protect, he realized that humanity was more than survival. Humans were a force even the most advanced species could not ignore. The creatures stirred, sensing the calm determination in Elias. Their small hands reached toward him, tentative but trusting. Elias smiled faintly. Together, humans and creatures formed a new kind of bond, a partnership forged in the harshest conditions and strengthened by the knowledge that they could survive anything. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the aliens recalculated, unprepared for what humans were truly capable of. The sun had barely risen over the horizon, painting the red plains in soft shades of gold and crimson. Elias Vorn stood on the ridge overlooking his ranch, scanning the distant hills. The air was tense, heavy with anticipation. He knew the alien enforcers were returning, this time not as scouts or small patrols, but as a full-strike force. Their ships gleamed in the distance, larger and more menacing than before, their movements precise and deliberate. Elias' hand rested on the crude wooden fence, but his mind was already several steps ahead. The aliens had underestimated humans before, relying on technology and numbers. But humans were unpredictable. Humans adapted. Humans survived. And that unpredictability would be their greatest weapon. Elias, Mara whispered, coming up beside him. Her eyes were wide with worry, but there was also awe. They're serious this time. They won't stop until they find them. Elias nodded, his jaw tight. Let them come. We'll be ready. Inside the barn, the creatures stirred. They had slept lightly, alert to every sound and vibration. Even now, they seemed aware of the tension, their large eyes following Elias and Mara with a keen, intelligent gaze. He knelt before them, speaking in soft, reassuring tones. "Stay calm," he said. "They won't take you if we stay clever. Follow Mara's lead and trust us." The creatures tilted their heads, making small clicking noises, their way of acknowledging him. Elias felt a surge of pride. These beings, alien in origin, were beginning to understand humans, not just as protectors but as allies. By the time the alien ships reached the edge of the ranch, Elias had prepared every trap, barricade, and distraction he could imagine. Trenches dug into the soft red soil, rock formations rigged to topple with careful timing, and fires placed strategically to obscure sensors. Even without advanced technology, he had made the land itself a weapon. Mara guided the creatures into positions where they could observe, alerting Elias when the patrols approached. The creatures responded instinctively, moving quickly yet quietly, manipulating small tools and natural objects with surprising intelligence. Elias marveled at how fast they were learning. Their instincts combined with human guidance made them a force to be reckoned with, despite their size. The aliens landed with calculated precision, their armored suits gleaming in the sunlight. They advanced toward the ranch, scanning for any sign of the creatures. Elias waited, his heart steady as the first step of his plan unfolded. A trap triggered, rocks tumbled down a slope, clattering across the ground. One of the aliens paused, confused by the sudden noise. Another moved cautiously, only to find a hidden pitfall partially covered with debris. Their formation faltered, and Elias knew they were beginning to underestimate the humans' resourcefulness. "Now," he whispered to Mara, "guide them forward." The creatures sprang into action, small yet precise. They moved quickly, disturbing small objects, knocking over containers, and making noise that drew the aliens' attention. Each act was calculated to confuse and mislead. The aliens, advanced though they were, could not anticipate the erratic, adaptive behavior of their targets. Humans had taught the creatures to think unpredictably, and it was working. Elias took a deep breath, moving through the barn with Mara at his side. They positioned themselves behind barricades, ready to defend the creatures if the aliens found their way inside. He glanced at the creatures, who watched intently, their large eyes reflecting trust and intelligence. Humans and these alien beings were now partners in survival, bound by circumstance and understanding. The alien enforcers advanced closer, their weapons scanning for life forms. One of them spotted movement, a shadow darting across the barn floor. Elias activated a diversion. A makeshift pulley released a weight that sent a shower of metal rods clattering to the ground. The alien recoiled, surprised by the sudden chaos. "Keep going," Elias shouted. "Distract them." The creatures responded instantly, moving from cover to cover, drawing attention while staying out of harm's way. Mara guided them with quiet commands, her fear replaced by focus. Every move Elias had planned was enhanced by their instincts and intelligence. Together, humans and creatures were more than just defenders. They were unpredictable, clever, and relentless. The aliens adjusted, realizing they could not storm the barn directly. They began to split into groups, scanning different sectors of the ranch. Elias had anticipated this too. He triggered another series of traps, smoke from fires to obscure sensors, rocks falling along expected paths, and small trenches that forced the aliens to move slowly. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens found themselves slowed, confused, and frustrated. Humans thrived in chaos, using intuition and cleverness to turn the tide against even the most formidable opponents. Elias felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, adaptable, brave, and fiercely protective of what mattered. One of the alien squads attempted to flank the barn, moving silently along a ridge. Elias noticed immediately and signaled the creatures. They scurried to positions along the ridge, their small forms blending into the rocky terrain. When the aliens approached, the creatures triggered small disturbances, rocks falling, dust clouds, and shifting debris. The aliens stumbled, momentarily blinded, and Elias pressed the advantage. He moved swiftly, guiding Mara and the creatures through hidden passages and behind barricades. Every action was calculated but flexible. Humans had always survived by adapting, and now their instincts were amplified by the creatures' intelligence. The aliens were powerful, but humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was their greatest strength. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional clash of metal and the hum of alien sensors. Elias and Mara moved with precision, coordinating the creatures' movements while maintaining their own defenses. Each trap, each diversion, each clever maneuver kept the aliens at bay. By midday, the aliens were visibly frustrated. They had advanced far, but they could not locate the creatures. Every predictable approach had failed. Elias knew they would not give up easily, but he also knew humans had one advantage the aliens did not: ingenuity. He looked at Mara, her face flushed with exertion. "We're doing it," he said quietly. "We're keeping them safe, and they don't understand humans at all." "That's our edge," Mara nodded, her eyes on the horizon. "They'll come back stronger, but humans can handle it, and the creatures, they're learning from us. They'll fight with us if needed." Elias felt a deep sense of pride. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. They had adapted, grown stronger, and turned weaknesses into advantages. And now, with the creatures learning from them, they had an edge no alien could predict. The alien enforcers attempted one final assault, moving directly toward the barn with weapons ready. Elias triggered his last trap, a combination of fires, falling rocks, and strategically placed trenches. The aliens were slowed, disoriented, and forced to retreat. The creatures watched silently, their small hands resting on Elias and Mara as if seeking reassurance. Elias knelt and spoke softly. "We did it. They won't take you today." Mara smiled, her fear replaced by relief. "We've shown them humans are more than they imagined. They can't predict us, they can't control us, and the creatures, they trust humans. That's something no one else understands." Elias nodded, looking at the horizon where the alien ships had retreated. He knew they would return, but he also knew something important. Humans had something the aliens could never anticipate. Their courage, adaptability, and ingenuity made them unpredictable, and that unpredictability was a weapon. The creatures stirred, small hands reaching toward Elias and Mara. Their soft noises, almost words, echoed trust and understanding. Humans had protected them, guided them, and inspired them. And in doing so, humans had shown the first signs of what they could become, a force that no species, no matter how advanced, could ignore. As the sun set, painting the red plains in shades of fire and gold, Elias and Mara stood together, watching the creatures settle peacefully in their pens. The alien enforcers had been repelled, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. Humans had survived countless threats across countless worlds. They had adapted, grown stronger, and turned disadvantages into strengths. And now, standing on the frontier with alien creatures who trusted them completely, Elias realized the truth. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were extraordinary. The wind swept across the plains, carrying the scent of dust and life. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the alien forces were recalculating, unprepared for what humans were capable of. Elias smiled faintly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of survival. They had stood their ground. They had proven something to the universe. And the creatures, small yet intelligent, were now part of that story. A story of humans who adapted, fought, and survived where no one thought they could. Tomorrow, the aliens might return. But today, humans had shown their true strength. Courage, intelligence, and the unpredictable will to survive against all odds. And somewhere beyond the hills, the universe began to take notice. The desert sky was painted in pale gold and crimson as the sun began its climb over the horizon. Elias Vorn stood at the ridge overlooking his ranch, the familiar red plains stretching endlessly before him. The wind carried the scent of dust, sweat, and determination, the smells of life on this harsh frontier world. Beside him, Mara adjusted the supplies she had prepared overnight, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They'll come back," she said softly, almost as a warning to herself. Elias nodded. He had expected this day, long before the first alien patrol had appeared. He had spent nights planning, preparing, and learning from every previous encounter. But now, the moment had arrived, the final confrontation. The aliens had returned, larger in number, their ships sleek and ominous as they hovered above the red plains. "They don't understand humans," Elias murmured. "They can't predict us. They can't calculate what we'll do next, and that's their mistake." The creatures stirred in the barn, sensing the tension in the air. Their small bodies twitched, their large eyes following every movement of Elias and Mara. They had grown accustomed to human guidance over the past days. They trusted Elias and Mara completely, and in that trust, humans had gained a strength that no alien technology could anticipate. Mara knelt beside the creatures. "We'll keep them safe," she whispered, her hand resting gently on one of their heads. "They're counting on us. And so are we, in a way. We have to show them. Humans are more than they think." Elias studied the horizon carefully. The alien ships descended methodically, their sensors sweeping across the landscape. He could see the armored enforcers moving toward the ranch with precise coordination. They had learned from their previous failures, but humans had also adapted, and humans were unpredictable. "Listen," Elias said, turning to Mara. "We'll use everything we have. Traps, terrain, and them, the creatures. They're small, but they're clever. And humans have something they'll never understand." Mara nodded, her fear tempered by determination. The creatures seemed to sense the seriousness in Elias' tone, their small bodies moving closer, ready to act. Humans had always inspired loyalty, even in beings vastly different from themselves. And now, that loyalty was returning the favor. The first wave of aliens advanced cautiously, expecting resistance, expecting predictable patterns. But humans were rarely predictable. Elias triggered the first set of diversions. Small fires flared across the plains, sending smoke into the air and confusing the aliens' sensors. Rocks toppled down ridges, forcing the enforcers to change their paths. And the creatures moved with uncanny precision, drawing attention and creating chaos wherever they went. Elia's mind worked quickly, calculating movements, anticipating reactions, and improvising where necessary. Humans had survived countless dangers, not by brute force alone, but by intelligence, adaptability, and instinct. Each trap, each distraction, each clever maneuver was designed to exploit the aliens' rigidity and reliance on technology. Mara guided the creatures into hidden positions along the ridges and among the rocks. Their small forms darted silently, manipulating natural objects and triggering devices Elias had set up. Each movement was precise, almost as if they understood strategy, timing, and caution. The aliens faltered, unprepared for this combination of human guidance and instinctive intelligence. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional clang of metal or the hum of alien sensors. Elias and Mara moved through the ranch like shadows, coordinating every action, protecting the creatures, and adapting constantly to the aliens' adjustments. Humans thrived on challenge, and this was the ultimate test. The aliens regrouped and attempted a more direct approach. Armed squads moved toward the barn, weapons scanning for life forms. Elias triggered the final set of traps, trenches hidden with debris, falling rocks, and carefully timed fires. The aliens stumbled, slowed, and became disoriented. Humans had turned every weakness into strength, every obstacle into an advantage. Mara's voice broke the tension. "They're learning from us," she whispered. "They're understanding strategy, timing, and patience. Elias, they're evolving because of humans." Elias nodded, feeling a surge of pride. The creatures were small and alien, yet humans had inspired them to adapt and think in ways no one had anticipated. Humans were more than survivors. They were leaders, teachers, and protectors. That was humanity's greatest strength. As the aliens approached the barn, Elias saw an opening. He signaled the creatures to act. They moved quickly, creating diversions, drawing the enforcers' attention while staying out of harm's way. Rocks tumbled, debris shifted, and fires flared. The aliens faltered, unsure how to proceed against such unpredictable opponents. Elias and Mara moved carefully, guiding the creatures and maintaining their defenses. Every action was calculated but flexible. Humans had survived by adapting for generations, and now their instincts were amplified by the creatures' intelligence. The aliens were powerful, but humans were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. The final confrontation reached its peak. The aliens attempted to breach the barn directly. Elias triggered the last of his traps. Rocks and weighted debris fell in precisely calculated patterns, forcing the enforcers into positions where they could be slowed or trapped. The creatures, small and agile, moved among the obstacles, creating confusion and chaos. Elias felt a sense of exhilaration. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and they had always found a way. Now, standing on the frontier, surrounded by alien creatures who trusted him completely, he realized something extraordinary. Humanity's strength was more than physical. It was intelligence, courage, adaptability, and the ability to inspire loyalty in others. The aliens paused, realizing their direct assault had failed. Their calculations had not accounted for unpredictability, for intuition, for ingenuity. Humans had turned the tide without advanced technology, relying on mind and heart as much as skill. Mara smiled faintly, exhaustion evident on her face. "We've shown them, humans are not ordinary. They can't predict us, can't control us. And the creatures, they trust us completely. That's something no one else understands." Elias nodded. He looked at the creatures, who were now calmly observing the battlefield, small hands resting on barricades and rocks, ready to act if needed. Humans had protected them, guided them, and inspired them. In return, the creatures had become part of a new kind of alliance, one built on trust, intelligence, and mutual respect. The alien enforcers, seeing their strategies fail, retreated to their ships. Their sensors scanned the area, but the unpredictability of humans and their allies had forced them to withdraw. Elias watched them leave, feeling a sense of triumph that went beyond victory. It was the triumph of ingenuity, courage, and the human spirit. As the dust settled, Elias and Mara moved among the creatures, checking that they were unharmed. The small beings made soft, almost musical sounds, sounds that seemed to express understanding and gratitude. Elias felt a profound connection with them. Humans had shown strength, not through domination or violence, but through protection, guidance, and creativity. Elias, Mara said quietly, they'll return eventually, but now we've proven something. Humans are extraordinary. We can survive, adapt, and protect in ways no one else can predict. And these creatures, they've learned that too. Elias smiled, looking over the red plains stretching endlessly before him. The wind swept across the land, carrying the scent of dust and life. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the universe was taking notice, not just of humans as survivors, but as something more. Something unpredictable, powerful, and extraordinary. He knelt before the creatures, speaking softly. "You're safe now," he said. "Humans will protect you, and together we'll show the universe what we're capable of." The creatures made small, responsive sounds, curling closer to Elias and Mara. Their eyes reflected understanding, intelligence, and trust. Humans had inspired them, taught them, and protected them. And in doing so, humans had proven their greatest strength. That survival alone was not enough. That courage, intelligence, and adaptability made them extraordinary. As night fell, Elias stood on the ridge once more, Mara beside him, watching the stars emerge one by one. The alien ships had vanished beyond the horizon, but Elias knew the universe would remember what had happened here. Humans had faced a threat far greater than themselves and had survived, not just by chance, but through ingenuity, courage, and determination. The creatures, small yet intelligent, nestled peacefully in their pens, a symbol of the bond forged between species. Humans had not only protected them, but had inspired them to grow, to learn, and to trust. And in that bond, humans had shown their true strength. Elias felt a deep sense of pride. Humans had survived countless dangers, adapted to every challenge, and overcome threats far beyond their size or technology. Now, standing on the frontier with alien allies by their side, he realized something remarkable. Humanity was extraordinary. And somewhere, far beyond the Red Plains, the universe had begun to take notice. The wind whispered across the desert, carrying the sound of life, survival, and determination. The stars above shone brighter, as if acknowledging the truth that humans had proven. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were a force of nature, adaptable, intelligent, courageous, and unpredictable. And nothing, not alien power nor impossible odds, could ever change that.